This is GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly podcast about gaming, technology, and play. Your hosts are Michael Martin, Andy Piper, and Michael Rowe. The thoughts and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests alone and are not the opinions of any organization which they have been, are, or may be affiliated with.
This is episode 413, AI Your Way. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to your weekly technology podcast, GamesAtWork.biz. My name is Andy Piper, and every week, myself and my co-hosts bring you the most interesting stories from around the interwebs, around everything new in tech, whether that's AI, metaverse, gaming, collaboration, social, all of the stuffs. So with that said, let's get right into it and throw it over to you, Mr. Michael Rowe. How's it going?
It's going well, Andy. And it is. They are the most important stories in tech, according to what we discovered over the week and had time to look at.
Sure. Whatever we decided is interesting to us, basically.
It's our definition. And that's why we are joined by our friend and co-host, Michael Martin. Michael, how are you?
Hey, doing fantastic. And yes, and by the way, you, the listening audience, do have an opportunity to influence our perception about what you think is most important for this week, too. And you could help us find those things even better than we tend to do ourselves.
How can they do that?
Oh gosh, just pretty much anywhere. We do smoke signals. We accept snail mail, especially if you write a website like on a $20 bill. We'll definitely take a look at that.
Crush a snail, put it in the envelope with the $20 bill, send it to Michael Martin.
Yeah, well, I won't be able to cook it then. That's terrible. But we're very active, as you might imagine, on multiple social media channels, and most of us are hanging out right over on Mastodon, and you can find us at Bots in Space there for Games at Work, plus our own physical and social feeds. So take a look at the website; you'll find us all.
And that website is.
It's kind of in the title. It's kind of in the title.
We make it easy on
you. Before we jump straight into our run of show this week, I was going to share that we did have some feedback over the course of the week.
Oh, that's right. Listener notes, right?
We had. I got a message earlier in the week asking me because I'd mentioned this Mac and iOS app called Short Circuit. For ChatGPT, what my setup was, because I'd actually been using Short Circuit when it was in test flight and using the OpenAI API beta because I was in the early access to ChatGPT stuff. So, and I know the author, so I had a series of things that had enabled me to use it. And Ian asked me what my setup was. And I think he and I both established in the end that there is a difference between ChatGPT Plus and the API subscriptions and other things like that. So I kind of we should have a disclaimer on our product recommendations, especially when they come with an associated cost, because they may end up with our listeners accidentally subscribing to something that doesn't work. But I think Ian got it working in the end and had a lot of fun over the course of the week. We also had a conversation this week that I'll just mention to folks. And I think Ian may have posted about it as well elsewhere, about the D&D story we mentioned last week. So using ChatGPT as a games master for your role-playing. And Ian also found, and I hope he won't mind me sharing, as he's sometimes a guest on the show, and we should get him back on again soon, see how things are. But he was also having fun getting it to switch from D&D to a Judge Dredd game and other things, which seemed really impressive. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a time that I'm going to be out in the next few weeks. Maybe Ian can be on that episode, and I'd love to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to skip one as well. Fun. So, and you usually need the sarcastic / otherwise down to earth Brit to keep everybody grounded on the show. So, maybe that would work. Anyway. I think our first story fits right into this area, right, Michael?
Oh, it absolutely does. There's a Washington Post article that found its way into our space, and this one deals with what are the websites that ChatGPT has ingested to make itself sound smart.
Well,
and
I think this is actually not ChatGPT specifically. It does mention ChatGPT in the title, but I think this is referring to a data set that Google owns. Now, that data set may have worked into ChatGPT, but OpenAI doesn't actually say what it's used. So, yeah, it's one of those clickbait / slightly obtuse headlines that grabs your attention. But yeah, certainly it's an AI. What? When we say large language model, what exactly is the data set that's trained that large language model?
And the answer is, who knows?
Well, the answer is my personal blog, it seems. That was
interesting.
What I particularly like about this headline is inside the secret list of websites that make AI like ChatGPT sound smart. Yes, everybody, andypiper.co.uk is one of the things that's driving the sounding smart of the AI chatbots.
There's that grounded Britishness that everyone really needs, as you can see.
Exactly. I'm glad to know that my correct command of the King's English, as it now is, of course, again, is helping.
But the interesting fact here is that the Games at Work website is not included in and amongst all those.
So sad.
So you would have thought that the crawler would be going through your personal website and go, oh, look, here's Games at Work. I guess I need to go get that too, but perhaps not.
Actually, there's a site that I've been working on lately that's ranked 19,000 in this data set. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
I took from my own, and my own wasn't listed at all. So
Kickstarter is remarkably high in the list of. So as you scroll through the article, there's an infographic that highlights sort of sites in different sectors and how highly they rank in terms of the quantity of content. I assume that is driving the quote unquote knowledge that the chatbots have. Now, personal blogs are a huge part of it, as this points out, especially in the technology space. But yeah, it's quite interesting, I think, to see where the data's come from. And there's the key point here is, and the reason I know this about my website is that there is a search box here where you can type in a domain of any kind and tell you whether it's listed and what percentage of tokens that is representing inside of the data set.
The thing that was going through my mind here too was, given how we've used over the years the Wayback Machine to reference earlier iterations of websites and kind of take snapshots at particular junction points, that as these large language models do their crawling and create the tokens against them, how that may or may not replace the function and capabilities of the Wayback Machine too, because that is now something that is designed to be eminently searchable, referenceable, discoverable in a way that we had other ways of doing that in the past.
This does feel like there's a genie out of a bottle here. I think that we probably would all agree on that subject anyway. But there are two specific things that have come up in the last 10 days, I think, across my sort of radar. One of them was Italy banning the use of or restricting access to, or actually I think OpenAI ended up restricting access because of the GDPR, the General Data Privacy Regulation, which requires that individual personal entities can be entries and information can be removed from a data set. Right. So at a point when and Italy has decided that they want to ensure that this law regulation, European regulation, is enforced as part of the technology's availability, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me. And there were some very excited commentators saying, hey, look, this is Italy trying to strangle AI, which I don't necessarily think is true. I think they were just looking at having the law, the regulations successfully enforced. But the other one, again, also on the excitable sort of side of things, was Elon Musk this week making a statement around lawsuits against Microsoft for having used Twitter data to train its, or by extension, because they're collaborating with OpenAI, the information there. So, yeah, I think it's got to be incredibly difficult to sort of remove this stuff when you're dealing with data at this scale.
Well, I think what you'd have to do is basically remove it from the base data set and regenerate the model.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not just the provenance of the data that you have to be watchful for here, too. There's also training and annotation that goes against it. So it could be that the annotations are the problem, not the base data. So there are segments of this that you would have to look at and say, well, that set of annotations that was done improperly for whatever reason, that's what I'd like to remove from the model, regen. Or in what we're just talking about here is that there are data that have not been explicitly been permitted, allowed, agreed to be incorporated in the overall data set. We've seen that in Stable Diffusion and other models there, for especially for images and for harvesting visual elements that might appropriate a style from a particular artist or something like that that may not have been approved to go through such process.
There was another interesting story this morning on NPR in the same vein that I heard that was talking about the energy costs of building these models and the energy cost of AI models in general that I thought was really interesting, especially as we talk about permission to use or not use data and having to regenerate these, right?
Right. Well, since I mentioned the Microsoft, the name of Microsoft in the context of ChatGPT and learning there, it's worth jumping across straight to the next link that we had. And Michael Martin, I know that you shared this with us. SwiftKey was a smart keyboard replacement that Microsoft acquired sometime in the last few years. Third-party keyboard that you can use on your mobile device. What's got you interested here?
Well, just the fact that Bing is part of Microsoft, as we know. Microsoft had made the investment in OpenAI, as we know. Bing has enabled capabilities there. And we've talked on the show here, a while ago, about the type ahead features that you see in the Office set of products, which is now being brought into SwiftKey as well. And it's not just the type ahead features, it is also the ability to reauthor or edit the sentiment that you are trying to create when you're using the SwiftKey keyboard, so that it learns your style, the way you communicate, and then now can give you a suggestion of maybe an improvement on what you're typing before you reply to somebody in a text or an email or anywhere else. It is a way of these kind of AI models finding their way into your day-to-day environment, not because you've done all the steps that we talked about last week with how might you connect the Apple wake word with a GPT-style large language model. These other things are here and are just kind of coming in right away.
So I just want to very quickly mention, because you mentioned the wake word, that I was listening to a podcast.
I didn't mention the wake word. I just said
you mentioned the term wake word.
The idea of the wake word. I was listening to a podcast that has the rejuvenation of a podcast that used to be on the BBC called Digital Planet. That podcast came to an end after many years, and the two folks, Gareth Mitchell and Bill Thompson, have created the Gareth and Bill cast. And I was listening to the second episode of that the other day in the car on CarPlay, and they mentioned the wake word, which led the wake word in the car to do something. But what I was going to say after, as you were talking about SwiftKey there, Michael, is did you install it? Did you start using it? Have you noticed that it's smarter, more intelligent using those AI features?
I've not gotten it to a point where I would say it's trained on my style as yet, but it's I just happened to see it, and I hadn't done a lot of experimentation with it so far. But what the thing that really intrigued me was just the fact that these capabilities are now finding their way into your everyday experience. And they're coming not because you said, oh, I'd really like to install these conversational AI things here. They're coming now as component pieces of other apps. Mm-hmm. So you can see it in Snapchat. There's, this set of capabilities. Sticking with Microsoft, you've probably noticed also in Skype, which longtime listeners will know that we use Skype to do our recording here. You can invite an AI into the chat that you're in, and you can reference it and ask it questions. And as you're conversing, it will provide insight and answers to the things you're looking for, links and more. So, it's coming. It's coming, and it's coming really fast.
I think this is also another good transition point, because we have a little video here that I saw this week. Packaby Robotics, who has built BMO from Adventure Time, the little robot companion. Now, in the background of the video of that we've got here, you can also see his Clippy that he made that was shared a few weeks ago. So there's a Microsoft and Office kind of connection there. But what he's done here with BMO is he demos it and shows it off. You can say to BMO, hey BMO, show me an image, or what are you looking at? And it will take a picture, and it will then figure out what's in the picture, and it will tell you what it's looking at, and then you can also imagine things, or what are you thinking of, BMO, and BMO will go off to DALL-E or one of the other technologies and have a dream of some form, get some kind of randomized image, and then describe the image back to you. So again, you've got this kind of componentization of these APIs and combination into this really fun, just so cleverly made, this particular thing where BMO has got some little facial expressions when it's thinking or calling the API. It's got its little coffee mug it's just a fun thing. I love it. Yeah, this is the kind of technological creativity I aspire to. And there's a few other BMO videos that are on the same PeerTube channel. I'm showing other things that BMO can do, which I really love.
I liked how BMO was interacting with one of the robots from Mystery Science Theater 3002.
Well, that's what he was looking at. What are you seeing? It's a robot, and it was a gumball machine, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
And the image that BMO was daydreaming about appeared to be something like that same gumball robot.
A gumbo machine would be pretty cool, right?
Lunch on the brain or something. I don't know. That was super cool. Now, the next of our list of things for the week came from something I came across. I don't remember exactly where, but it is a Turing test, and we've talked about Turing tests already plenty of times. And this one is called humanOrNot.ai. And the way this particular website functions is you arrive at it, you click on a button to say that you'd like to engage in it. It tells you to wait a moment, and it randomly, or maybe not randomly, I don't know, the code will be one thing or another, connects you with a human or an AI, and you're given 2 minutes to figure out if you're a human or an AI. I know, Michael, I think you played with this. I've played with it. Yep. What was your reaction to this?
Well, I enjoyed it. I know... I don't know if we talked about this before, just offline, not in the show, but this was so familiar. But anyway, so I did it last night, playing around with it a little bit, and it gives you 2 minutes in the sense that there's a 2-minute conversation that will occur, right?
Right.
And you're not allowed to guess before or after, the end on whether the person or the thing is a thing.
So these are real time conversations. So it's matching you to real people. To have those
to an AI.
Right, yeah, okay.
And the idea is, can you figure out which one it is? And typing on an iPad at night my typing was bad, so it was probably obvious that I was a human. And the other person's typing was bad, so I kind of figured that it was a human, and it was. But the question is, what's the conversation you want to have that gives you a clue that they're a human, right? So I started by saying, have you seen any good movies lately? Right?
Yeah.
And when I was hoping they would ask me something back so I could say, I don't get out to movies, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But they never got to that point. So I don't know what they voted, if I was human or not.
You were trying to deliberately fool them that way, right? Okay.
Yeah. So it was fun. It's kind of fun.
So I played it earlier as well, and I captured the screen for this too. So the other side started the conversation and said, "Give me one reason I shouldn't fire you." And so my response was, "One reason."
My response is, "I don't work for you."
and then my companion said another one, and so then I gave the German word for one, which was eins. So I was like, okay, so let's see what happens with this. Then the other side left the conversation, and I had to vote whether it was human or not. So I was like,
that was human.
That's a bot,
Right?
But it wasn't. It was a human.
It was a human. They were frustrated that you weren't playing right.
I was playing perfectly right. I was just being.
You were being a smart ass.
Yeah.
So, are you smart enough to fool Mrs. Davis?
Oh, well, that would be a good question, especially now since the movie, the TV
series,
excuse me, it just started, right?
Yes.
So the first episode launched
last night.
Thursday.
I don't know whether this is available in the UK. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's on Peacock in the States, which is what, NBC?
Yeah.
Streaming service, and I have this one, and I want to see it. I haven't watched it yet.
UK date yet to be announced, says The Guardian. Never mind.
Oh no. So that's rough. So I'm very eager to see this too. So the description on IMDb says Sister Simone partners with her ex-boyfriend Wiley on a globe-spanning journey to destroy Mrs. Davis, a powerful artificial intelligence.
So Mrs. Davis
Sister Simone is a nun.
Of course. So I was actually.
Right. Mrs. Davis is the wake word.
Right.
But it's actually interesting. I read a couple of deeper stories on it this week in anticipation of watching. And it's not necessarily... The basic premise is you want to destroy it. But the thing is it evil or not? Right? It doesn't play by human... morals or a moral code or compass, and the goal of the AI is to make people happy.
Ostensibly,
yes. So there must be something evil there.
Well, given our show's interest areas and focus, and the fact that we're all in tech, and the fact that AI is huge right now, or this whole idea of these large language models and sort of assistants, at least. It's definitely something I'd like to try out and dip into. I don't know how I'm going to be able to watch it just yet, but hopefully that will be something that I can look at before too long. Today I'm going to finish the final season of Picard, and then yesterday I got to within the end of The Mandalorian, but still have got another couple of episodes to finish off.
Spoilers.
And then I need to go back and finally watch Ms. Marvel. So I'm so far behind. Oh, and Andor as well. So I'm so far behind right now. Too many good things to watch.
We've got to finish up Mandalorian. We just started Picard, so we're like 2 episodes in there. So definitely way too much fun things to watch right now.
But before we leave the Mrs. Davis one, I thought it was interesting that the top cast for all the people that are there. First of all, there's a Jack Foley plays Nerd with a Beard, which sounds like a great character who's in 5 episodes.
There's at least a couple of them on this show.
I was going to say, are you sure you're not been moonlighting somewhere?
Shh. My stage name. But there's not a top cast for Mrs. Davis. So I kind of wonder whether or not they're actually using an AI to play the AI. But wouldn't they give a credit in a IMDb if they were?
Maybe it would be like in the end of She-Hulk, or I'm going to spoiler everything.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, got to be careful.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it, because people
show.
might be listening to this in 3 years' time and still be not caught up with everything. So,
yeah, I know. We're still concerned about what happens in The Hobbit. Okay, so let us move on to a bit of a longer form article, which was super intriguing to me.
Very interesting.
The title's called "The Age of Averages," and it's from Alex Murrell, in an article written there. And my high level summary to start us off for this conversation is about what for me feels like the flattening of design, that so many things are roughly equivalent to others. And the article talks about elements from architecture to fashion to automobiles to a whole bunch of stuff. The notion here is that things are drawing towards the center, and given our bridge from the conversation on AI and trying to make people happy, you can see that the law of averages does tend to bend the arc of things, book titles, etc., towards something that will have the mass appeal. There's more to it that I thought about here, but I'm curious to hear from you guys, your take on it, your read on this article too.
Yeah, this was shared by a friend of mine on Mastodon, one of my former colleagues. This is actually a month old as we record, as a piece of writing, and I hadn't come across it until this week. And as you say, it's longer. I started out reading it, and just the very first story told in the introduction section was intriguing enough, but then the author goes on to demonstrate that not only are paintings and cultural approaches and interests in paintings sort of convergent across the globe, but the same thing is true of interior design and of and what else is it? Architecture. That was fascinating, between cities and around the world in different places. Car design, logo design, people's look, especially being driven by, in this case, this idea of Instagram face. So people sort of aiming for a particular look that might be, as you say, Michael, sort of mass appeal. Movie posters, really, really well written, fascinating, curious piece of writing, curious phenomenon being described. It made me sad. I was trying to explain it to my wife, and I realized, having read it, that it was difficult to summarize the reason. I think, other than mass appeal, I think this kind of just sort of, I'm curious what you both think about it.
I really enjoyed this, and the point of tying it to AI, I think is key, and it's something that I think about a lot, and that is the highly risk adverse nature of people, of leaders, of thought leaders, of marketing firms, you name it. You find something that looks like it's winning, and everybody does that because it's a low risk chance to do something. It's like once surrealism became popular, it was easy to do that. And then you had somebody go off in a different angle and take a huge risk, and they either failed or they succeeded, and then you had Pollock, right? And you think about this in lots of different things. It's the idea that as a human race, as a society, whatever level you want to take it, we go to things that build community, that build similarities. It's how we work better together. But with AI, we've now taken even more risk out, because we're going to do what is predicted to be right. So 80% of the time we'll do 80% of the activities that are 80% right. And when I see people coming up with ways of doing, and I'll just pick on, stuff that I'm looking at right now, development, right? Using ChatGPT to write code. If it writes the code for you, it's okay, right? And you know it's okay, and everything's okay, and that's okay. And it's the same thing in all these examples. If you're doing a Marvel movie, you know it's a Marvel movie. It's going to have an X size audience, and it's going to make X amount of dollars. It's a safe bet. And we have, as a culture, as a society, everything going to the point where we are risk adverse, which stops change. Having risk takers, people who go against the grain, go orthogonal to the design pattern, is where you get change and growth. And so I read this article with that in mind as I'm reading through it, saying, yeah, it's easy to create something new if it's kind of like everything else, and you'll be okay. It's hard to do the radically different and to try to build a new space out. And so I found this really interesting, and it's one of the fears I have with AI, in that we will stay safe instead of risking into new areas, because we'll do, by looking back at the things that worked in the past, and we'll do the same thing.
Yeah, I certainly mentioned it in a show not too long ago about the fact that the AI is learning from existing knowledge rather than necessarily innovating and going off in new directions. So I think that's a really valid set of thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, the tagline for our show here was deliberately chosen as a result of this article, because there are examples like Nespresso's "Indulge Your Way," Sonos's "Sound Your Way," AI Your Way lends itself extraordinarily well to what the two of you were just saying. It's driving towards the middle. It's optimizing. It's leveraging existing.
I thought that was the Burger King / McDonald's / whichever.
Yeah, no,
tagline.
Surprise.
Have it our way.
So now exactly. Have it your way.
Wow. It's almost as if we do some thinking when we put together our show.
Sometimes,
we try not to.
Sometimes. Well, we're getting short on time, and we have a couple of intriguing little Apple posts here. Now, granted, we're not an Apple podcast, as everyone knows, but we've got a couple of intriguing ones. Michael, I think you found at least the first one about the listening capability of HomePods.
Yeah, this is a really cool feature, and I enabled it on mine yesterday.
Me too.
So
because you shared this.
Yeah. so basically, if you've updated your HomePods to the most recent operating system on your phone and your other devices, you have the ability to enable the new architecture. And in that new architecture, it enables a feature on the HomePod to monitor for the sound of smoke detectors or CO detectors going off. And then you can do automations. You can do notifications. And I was listening to an Apple podcast on this earlier in the week, and they were talking about... yeah, really. They were talking about being away from home and never knowing that the smoke detector went off. Yeah. And so this is a feature that will help you there, because you can actually notify you when you're not at home. Hey, you might want to have something checked out if you don't have a monitored system, right? Call a neighbor. Is my house on fire? So I thought that was really cool, kind of a neat way of taking existing technology and expanding it into a new area.
Super deluxe, cool. And it's the HomePod itself acts as the home hub. So naturally, if it's on, it can be doing these kinds of things for you. And there can be other elements like that too. The last one, and we probably don't have time to go into it in detail, is another set of rumors around the mixed reality headset article. And Michael, I think you found that one too, didn't you?
Yeah, it's really trying to be a summary of rumors, but it's not. And I'm just like last year, I'm getting more excited about a coming WWDC, and hopefully they announce it, and I've got funds set aside to buy it.
So you already have the $3,000 that people seem to be thinking it's going to be, huh?
I have funds set aside to buy it.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Well, you need some funds set aside for the last thing on our list as well.
Yes.
Which is not
as many.
More useful for the two of you than it is for me, given its geographical location. But the last thing I noticed in my, I may subscribe to a few Lego related feeds on different apps, and it popped up that there's a Lego show coming to Raleigh. This is the Art of the Brick, which is the one that actually I saw just a couple of months ago when I was in FOSDEM in Brussels, and that happened to be on there at the time. So I hope you both get to go and check out some art made with Lego bricks.
Sounds exciting.
On my calendar already, and it's going to be in the same venue where the Van Gogh exhibit was, incidentally.
Yeah, very cool.
So that's kind of fun, too.
Very cool. Looking forward to it.
Well, team, that gets us to our time for today.
We've reached the end of the internet, and so have you.
and there's a restaurant there.
You can take a break now, and then just sort of take a nap for 7 days, and then come back and listen again next week.
Exactly.
If you choose not to, though, you could reach out to us and provide things that you want us to talk about. Go to our website at gamesatwork.biz and comment on a show.
Definitely.
That would be awesome.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, until next time, everyone.
See ya.
Have a great one, and we'll see ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to GamesAtWork.biz, the podcast about gaming technology and play. We are part of the Blueberry Podcasting Network, and would like to thank the band Random Encounters for their song, Big Blue. You can follow us on Twitter at GamesAtWork_biz or at our website at GamesAtWork.biz.